须，那么所须，那么我那么须所，我那么那就须，那么所须，那么我那么须所。也知道自己从哪来，讲究把路哪里的走切，大概几年级别从哪里，多拉边就上街就把说，上街知道自己从哪来，讲究把路哪里的走切，大概几年级别从哪里，多拉边就上街就把说，上街知道自己从哪来，讲究把路哪里的走切，大概几年级别从哪里。我那边就上给如果说所需，每个休息没多长，是让你是你的点把的，上给心中没得可以，如今他到先把这把说，一来不是那边的老房子呀的呀。리노는 제디 무슨가 되가지 뭐 스케드가 또 그러니까 젠디 만나 싶은 좀 자다 마마 싶어 좀 마시 뭐라 근데 좀 지지 맞다 대원도 저마도 코치는 그냥 봐 힘이 이가 기지적 부분 지지 맞다 대화도 대화 수초가도 되나 점마도 맞지 얘마다 좀 대다시니 뭔가 말이 신경을 써서 그래서 내가 지금 자꾸 그래서
Please adjust your sitting posture according to seven meditative postures of Vairocana. And think, all sentient beings have been my mothers. All sentient beings have been my mothers, not just once, but for numberless times. And all mother sentient beings are as kind as my mothers in this life. Even though all kind mother sentient beings want happiness and do not want even a small suffering. However, due to engaging wrongly in objects of adoptions and abandonment, they do not experience any happiness but suffering. In our minds, sincerely generate loving kindness towards all kind mother sentient beings, thinking, how nice it would be if all kind mother sentient beings were to have happiness and the causes of happiness, that is, virtues. May all kind mother sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. Our cause all kind mother sentient beings to have happiness and the causes of happiness. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so.
What is it? What means to be the mother and to be the grandson? You want to do to talk about it? So, I think about the children from the mother, she will be so.
Next, we generate compassions, thinking, how nice it would be if the bodies of all suffering mother sentient beings were free from, how nice it would be if the bodies of all suffering mother sentient beings were free from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue, such as physical pain, sickness, and problem caused by four elements. May the bodies of all suffering mother sentient beings be free from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue. I will free the bodies of all suffering mother sentient beings from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so. How nice it would be if the minds of all suffering mother sentient beings were free from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue, such as fear, and all coarse and subtle negative discursive thoughts. May the minds of all suffering mother sentient beings be free from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue. Or free the minds of all suffering mother sentient beings from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so. 이기 수마 이기 How nice it would be if the speech of all suffering mother sentient beings were free from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue, all coarse and subtle negative speech such as telling lies. May the speech of all suffering mother sentient beings be free from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue. I will free the speech of all suffering mother sentient beings from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so. How nice it would be if the three doors of all suffering mother sentient beings were free from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue. May the three doors of all suffering mother sentient beings be free from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue. I will free the three doors of all suffering mother sentient beings from all classes discordant with accomplishing virtue. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so. How nice it would be if all mother sentient beings were free from all suffering and the causes of suffering that are non-virtues. May all mother sentient beings be free from all suffering and the causes of suffering. I will free all mother sentient beings from all suffering and the causes of suffering. Lama, please bless me to be able to do so. Next, we generate bodhicitta. First, we ask ourselves, who should take on the responsibilities to free all mother sentient beings from the sufferings of samsara and of lower realms? I should take on the responsibility to free all mother sentient beings from the sufferings of samsara and lower realms. Even though I should take on the responsibility, I do not have the ability to do so now. Who has such abilities? Those who have achieved perfectly complete enlightenment the abilities to do so. Therefore, for the sake of all mother sentient beings, by all means, I will achieve the precious state of enlightenment. Next, we generate all-encompassing yoga mind, the aspiring conventional bodhicitta that thinks, for the sake of all mother sentient beings, by all means, I will achieve the state of enlightenment. These transform into a perfect mundis at one's heart. Next, we generate ultimate bodhicitta, which is one's mind becoming in one taste with emptiness, the lack of inherent existence. These transform into a white five-pronged vajra on top of the mundis. Next, we meditate on emptiness for a short while. That I do not exist inherently one with, nor inherently different from the aggregates. Thus, I am empty of inherent existence. As I mentioned, it is very important and beneficial to conjoin our roots of virtue done through our three doors with the practice of six perfections. Thus, to conjoin these roots of virtue with the practice of six perfections. Thus, the first one is generosity. The nature of generosity is an intentions of giving. These roots of virtue of listening, contemplating, and meditating on the Dharma is for the sake of the arising of happiness in sentient beings and purifying the sufferings of all sentient beings. Next is morality. The nature of morality is a mind of abandonment. When I listen to, contemplate, and meditate on the Dharma, I will properly abandon my physical and verbal misdeeds so that they do not manifest in these 2 hours. Next is patience. The nature of patience is an undisturbed mind. When I listen to, contemplate, and meditate on the Dharma, I will patiently accepting any physical or mental hardships that occur during these 2 hours. Next is joyous effort. The nature of joyous effort is a mind that takes delight in virtue. I will delightfully put effort in the virtue of listening, contemplating, and meditating on the Dharma.
也就是上帝说，看到身体啊，搞这个这个人嘛，上帝是我是蛮难受，我是年少过是几个个是难多的，难有的难多，身体的年少过是比小比得了个，是要不这几个年头不一样，我的第一个是对这对上帝是的是的是。
Next is meditative stabilization. The nature of meditative stabilization is a mind that single-pointedly focuses on any virtuous object. I will single-pointedly focus my mind on the intended virtuous object without being influenced by distractions and discursive thoughts.
学的时候，学的东西里边的，学的我是蛮难受，那年少过是几个，几个人看你就那个时间完了吧，真的要写东西准备呢，他第一个是别在这必须是难受的。
Last one is wisdom. The nature of wisdom is an awareness that thoroughly distinguishes phenomena. I will properly and unmistakenly understand the words and meanings of the teachings that I listen to, contemplate, and meditate on.
就是的，他那个上面是不好的，理解的，我从哪里去跟你是不是的很多你他不是那样的这个。
Set a good motivation. For the sake of all mother sentient beings, I will achieve the state of enlightenment. For these, I will listen to the commentary on Lam Rim teachings and practice accordingly in order to benefit sentient beings. Oui.
那是开始唱的，房子不完了，等于兄弟们不是兄弟，也是他身体的病，是把你啥的个，你把全部都不的，房子不完了，房子比你是这个东西，你没学，对不对？
So today we are going to start from here, and this is under the outlines of in order to abandon self-grasping, we need to refute the determining object of self-grasping.
那个房子的去当的抗战的当的历史我，抗战的那个自己的东西，怎么办？我公了是吧？当时那利益，对吧？给你好的我给你当时给你个货了，抗战的当时你可以当时看一下你看中国的嘛，给你新的，那种的是修的，新的那个好的也是我那对吧？
So we talk about self-grasping, and self-grasping is twofold: self-graspings of person and self-graspings of phenomena, such as aggregates. So we need to, and these two self-graspings are these two self-graspings are awarenesses that apprehends a person or phenomena as established by way of its own character. So we need to abandon these two self-graspings. And in order to abandon these two self-graspings, we need to identify the determining object of these two self-graspings, then we abandon it.
我刚才我听完了，刚才我之前的看的，我去当时看的当时你过了，你们的我你找的了，我过去找的第二的去，你刚才看到当时第二去，我第二刚才兴趣路的，我第二刚才我的多了，你我刚才当时去看的，你不完了第二兴趣路的，人把这个有的看的这个对对。 이제 만나시 그냥 내가 지 그래서 딱 그러와 신도 유가 신도 유가 그래서 그런 게 쉬운데 그래서 단지 지 단지 되게 쉬운데 봐 그래서 이게 까지 내가 방법이나 얘를 된다 신발지 네 간디시 공부 되고 해야 돼야 근데 단지 내가 찍고 단지 단지 가서 가는 안 되고 말이지 내가 단지 단지 키 단지 내가 찍어 내가 뭐 아니 뭐 얘는 같이 잡고 같이 잡아도 되는지 시행을 봐라 스스로가 같이 잡고 말도 되는지 시행 그 마시와 현다지 시행과 공부가 이제 공부해서 가르 공부이나 그렇게 뭐 말이야 내가 뭐
If you do not meditate like this on the meaning of the negations of the erroneous object that is the roots of being bound in secular existence, then even if you meditate on something else that you claim is profound, it will not harm the apprehensions of the self at all. Yeah, we'll find kind of verse. Yeah, so for unless the mind enters the suchness of selflessness and emptiness, the apprehensions of the self cannot possibly be reversed. So also, if you do not negate of the object of the apprehensions of the self, you yeah, so this one Geshe-la will talk later. Yeah. So from here, so here it talks about the root of samsara is the two self-graspings. The root of samsara is two self-graspings. So we need to abandon these two self-graspings in order to be free from samsara. So here it says that, and in order to abandon these two self-grasping, we need to identify and refute the determining object of these two self-graspings. As it says here, negation or refutations of the erroneous objects. So erroneous objects also refers to the determining object apprehended by two self-graspings. So we need to understand and realize that the object that is apprehended by these two self-graspings do not exist as is apprehended. So, yeah. So even if we meditate on something else that you claim is profound, so you meditate on something else that you claim is profound, since it will not directly harm the two self-graspings, so no matter how much you meditate on those you claim is profound, it will not harm the two self-graspings. So we must meditate on that which harms the two self-graspings, which is meditate on the refutations of the determining object of these two self-graspings. So by doing that, we will harm the two self-graspings. So even if we cultivate conduct, even if we cultivate bodhicitta or compassions and etc., since it's not the direct antidote to it, it will not harm two self-graspings.
이제 간단하게 거듭 하러 나 대내식이 대스법 공부 이제 공부 때 당신은 너무 말해서 그렇다는데 아무튼 너무 말해서 나 간다 다음에 이게 시험이 내봐도 시험이 되는 하다 내가 마고 봐이나 이 시험다 다시 공부 시간하시 그동안 참고하다 이제 뭐한테 계산을 좀 써버려 그냥 단스 카드를 이렇게 그거 막 다시 내가 좀 그거 아직도 좀 그거 되고 맞다 단위도 좀 알았다 간다 내 뒤에 시험이 되는 딱 간다 김바 나시 내봐 내가 고생을 했다 동방이 되게 바로 보는데 단지 시행이 받도나 가서 단지 시행이 받도 가서 다음에 오늘에 그거 취지 단지 시행이 받도 있다 그 다음에 오늘에 이거 고도리 간다 단지가 단지가 뭐래 단지 폰도 요리스 대마도 단지지 시마시와 예대 단지지 열라 이파 뭐 그 디바상들 대바나 간다 다음에 되더라 아까 또 그거 말해 다음에 되는데 또 그거 말했어 와 대장이 그거 말했어 니한테 당신 지역의 수익성 그래서 수익성 소화를 내가 무슨 나시 내가 갖고 그래서 수익성은 좀 다르고 소화
So we need to meditate on the meaning of the negations of the erroneous object, means that we need to meditate on the refutations of the determining object of the two self-grasping. Yeah. So yeah. So even if you meditate on something else that you claim is profound, since it will not harm the apprehensions of a self, two apprehensions of a self or self-graspings, then these two cannot be eliminated. So unless the mind enters the suchness of selflessness and emptiness, the apprehensions of a self cannot possibly be reversed. So mind enters the suchness of selflessness and emptiness also refers to the mind needs to realize the non-existence of the determining object of two self-graspings. So we need to realize that the determining object apprehended by two self-grasping do not exist. So they do not exist as is apprehended by these two self-graspings. So refutation or negation means that we need to understand that they do not exist as they are apprehended by two self-graspings. So if we realize the non-existence of the determining object of self-graspings of person, then we are meditating on, or we realize the meaning of selflessness of person. So when we realize the non-existence of the determining object of the self-graspings of phenomena such as aggregates, then we are meditating on or realize the meaning of selflessness of phenomena.
What is it? And the one Mangala is a song. But I insist to songs about the song. That will be so that under the Yulan Dubana, the Yulan Dubana, and we got the temper prevents in the China. They made in Zimbachita, that temper to put in Jimmy Kaya, Hungry Cheba the machine and Zimbachi song. Yes, what in the Basu.
Zivasum the Kyungsensum Maroy. So also, if you do not negate the object of the apprehensions of a self, you might hinder your mind from going toward its object. In other way of saying this is merely withdrawing your mind inwards or from going towards the object. It cannot be posited as entering selflessness. So the reason why that when the mind engages an object, there are three possible apprehensions. So the three apprehensions are apprehension of that object, observed object as truly existent, an apprehension of it as non-truly existent, and an apprehension that does not qualify it as either of those two. So there's neither of those two.
What the conduct was the patient would conduct the middle Masuya, that Demban Zima Bashingo was at work. That conduct the middle Masuya, Demban Zima Bashingo, then conduct Darwin, conduct the two Darwin Masuja, Masawa, his Dazi, two Darwin Masuja, then Damina should yes, in fact, in marriage.
가서 당직이 당진라 마주경
마주자 다음에는 이거 쉬운 거 yes 다시 거기에 배는 로 숨바치 또 그거 숨바네 이봐 타이에 버티 요래 대바라 마지바 나도 그거 마지바 이제 된 봐야 많이 이제 이거 요래 해서 와 이게 뭐래 대바라 마지마 대바 마지마 이봐 되네 또게 이거 말이 얘네 마도 봐이나 이봐 대바 이거 그래서 되네 많이 받지 그렇지 그래서
Dami Lama Tona yang 당진 yang ingo marwa. So therefore, simply not apprehending something as truly existent does not entail that you apprehend it as not truly existent. So it means that if you do not apprehend something as truly existent, so it doesn't necessarily mean that you're apprehending it as non-truly existent. Likewise, a mere lack of involvement in the two selves does not entail that you are involved in the two selflessnesses. So there are countless mental states in the third category. So the third category refers to the third possible apprehensions, an apprehension that does not qualify it as either of those two. So it means that even if you do not apprehend a person or phenomena as truly existent, doesn't mean that you are engaging in two selflessnesses, the selflessness of person and selflessness of phenomena. So why is that? Because and be the third category. So similarly, if you do not realize, or if your mind do not engage in the two selflessnesses, doesn't mean that you are engaging in apprehending the object or person or phenomena as truly existent. Again, because they are, it can be the third possible apprehensions. That is neither of those two.
到这个呢是讲到有一个反正可以找的广播了，讲的你找到我了，你讲了是一分不到生活的这个电脑方面也是，他讲呢可以找的结果了，可以找电子电力的，原来这个生活没把它打电话的电脑方面都能没个结果的，是这么去的是吧？
講到啦，佢會走啊電子接吧啦，
可以找電子的結果了，那電子電力可能是學。毕竟，当时我拿去给你把电脑后面也把钱也是这么我们学的。
So the next outline is it talks about we need to ascertain the basis mistaken by the two graspings as not existent. So we need to ascertain the basis mistaken by true grasping as non-existent. So they do not exist as is apprehended.
而且有的，大部分这个理解做抗杀的，是我调的很多。那大部分这个理解抗杀的，抗杀大部分这个，那去年我那个去到这个这个，当时都是这个事。我电力当然吹就，当时电力个至少有些电力觉得说呢，但没把就，现在电脑公司也是去也是，也满意吧？觉得可能那个说话觉得满意吧？那古嘛拿了是接帮了这把单到，当时这个说拿去的。没把的了，上到毛对吧？现在记得上到的当地的别个收回来，收出来给个嘛的是，那么拿了，那么拿了我这里接的，放了这几位呢，都没抢到是吧？你刚才这钱给我们是吧？我拿了我这里放了这几个呢，你这钱给我们是吧？我电脑是是的。
The two apprehensions of a self mainly operate while something, a person, or a phenomenon is being observed. So here it talks about the two self-graspings. So the self-graspings of person and self-graspings of phenomena. So therefore, you must determine that the very basis of misapprehensions do not exist in the way they are apprehended. So we need to ascertain, or we need to determine the basis for misapprehensions or the basis of mistake do not exist in the way they are apprehended. So they do not exist as apprehended. So otherwise, it would be like searching for a thief in the meadow after he has fled to the forest. So in order to eliminate the two self-graspings of person and self-graspings of phenomena, we must determine the basis of misapprehensions do not exist as they are apprehended. If we do not ascertain these, then if we were to meditate on something else in the hope of eliminating these two self-graspings, then it would be like the example mentioned here. It would be like searching for a thief in the meadow after he has fled to the forest. So it becomes unrelated. What you are meditating on does not relate to eliminations of the two self-graspings.
我点的当时点你不怕那个所有了，他东北的东北的做也是点的点的东北的做也是，你对东北点你就行，没法的话，你点那个东北的做的，东北就东北点怕高，点你就行，那个东北让点怕高呢，现在就老是的，点你搞下去的东北人呢，我他对，那么多啥点嘛都说了的，现在来搞说了，当时就说了些，我早的这个真的是我们把兴趣到多少件事，是吧？你怎么了？把真的不是兴趣到多少件事？我顶多找是的，那看到了吧，可以找当时顶多的，给我了，给你心里面把的过的也是，那对，我点过我的是，点毛公们说了在现在就在给你们到时去，我得去现在就不会是呢，他们的上去说了吧，当时接个断的了。接下来现在就公布了，都兴趣到多少件事？我当时点你把接断的到，给你心里是去点了我那个对吧？我就说说，
当今意嘅现有的顺顺啊，顺顺啊，
第四训的是，
嗯
第四训的看到给你公布了嘛都，你现在对你发光的现在就这里当地的公文是呢，那上去是说了一个虽然就讲到嘛，我说我啥的，我说我啥的，是这个地方啥的是。
So consequently, since you remove the mistake by meditating on the determined meaning, such as emptiness is such an emptiness is the supreme meaning of suchness. So meditating on emptiness is the supreme is the supreme meaning of suchness in order to eliminate the two self-graspings. So emptiness also refers to refutations of the determining object of two self-graspings. So by realizing that they do not exist as apprehended. So if you determine something apart from the meaning of suchness, that eliminates that mistake. So if you put this emptiness meditation on emptiness aside, or the refutations of determining object of two self-graspings aside, and then if you were to meditate on something else in the hope of eliminating two self-graspings, then the only thing that will cease is something imputed by your own assertions. So therefore, remember that this deviates from the meaning of the scriptures. So if you wish to eliminate two self-graspings, we need to meditate on emptiness by refuting the by refuting determining objects of two self-graspings. If not, if you meditate on something else in the hope of eliminating two self-graspings, then you have deviated from the meaning of the scriptures.
我等到我那实际送报的时候，他就送报的时候，他送报的讲的等到这个等到的，他讲的电子多功能呢，你电子多吧呢，按过来多吧的哈过来，对吧？电子多呢，按过来多吧的通呢，过来多吧的通啊，送到也可能电子多吧了，也可能是到啊多，也是可能是到啊多，他也可能是到啊多不吧对了，对了，接着接，接着，那接着就好不多。接着就自动全部接，也把啥全部接，是吧？我就接着搞到就是呢，年纪多吧呢，当过来多的就是，过来多的就是，过来多了，看见年纪多吧了，而是点过是也可能到啊多就是，到啊多吧了，接着接的都把接的自动全部下来的，那这个那个那个结果也是，那对我们学的是吧？
So here is under the outlines of, one sees that, one sees that true grasping is eliminated. Sorry, one sees that one will be free from samsara if true grasping is eliminated. So, and one sees that in order to eliminate true grasping, one needs to realize the view of suchness. Therefore, cherish or value the realizations of the view of suchness. So this under the outline that I mentioned just now. So you see that if one will be free from samsara if true grasping is eliminated. Therefore, one should cherish or value or have high regard for the realization of the view of suchness.
Okay. 他讲的对，他讲的么修的，他讲的可以找的那他讲的，他讲的咱们去到你有吧？他讲的是啥呢？对不对？我在那接报的没说啥，咱们是吧？接报的没说啥，他接报的没老师吧？他那个自己把自己的讲的这个都有吧？他就说是去对吧？是，他数据工作做这个问题，那这个工作就是他妈的，这个这个到底对吧？就当的。 他这里是把这里，他这嘛就是马里巴这里，他马里巴这里，他们是故意做个早晚的那个的，这工作太多了，还是的，这个多的，也是我就当不了是吧？他这里就是当的，就当时的当时的，刚好就是你这个时间，他接到的没有的，当到了是吧？这我们在那个接到的没老师把那个自己关这个，他刚才给当的，哎，他是错了是吧？就是我这边把这个东西给当子了啥？ 这电把这个这个马里巴电呢，这咱们的东西多的到啊，你呢，这工的多了啊，这工的这边的多，还是我，他咱们不行吧？
오늘 그 강덕이 그것에 대해 이바당 비밀이래.
일본의 저와 일본스가 일본의 진짜로 일본 주변 일본스
강사기 일본.
취지 일본의 강사기 일본 진짜 일본의 진짜 일본의 가보다 그래서 일본의 그래서 진짜 나시 이게 대박 일본의 나왔어 이런
취기 일본하고당 강사기 일본하고 있나 이
강사 대박 그건 진짜 일본의 강사 대박 진짜
일본에 대해 대마 주었지 마. 강이 쟁이기 주어.
한국 진짜 좋아 일본 대답 나와 일본 대답 나와지
So that being so, the ignorance that apprehends the elaborations of persons, such as men and women, and of phenomena, such as forms and feelings, to be truly existent, is stopped by gaining the view that realizes their emptiness, selflessness, and meditating on it. So the elaborations here, we need to be free from these elaborations. So these elaborations is how say establishment by way of its own character or truly existent. So ignorance that apprehends person such as men and women as truly existent or as established by way of its own character. So similarly, the ignorance that apprehends phenomena such as form, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness as truly existent or established by way of its own character. So these two ignorances, or these two self-graspings are stopped by gaining the view that realizes their emptiness or selflessness, and meditating on it. So realize that they do not exist as they are apprehended. So they are apprehended by through self-graspings as truly existent. So we need to realize the emptiness, the non-existence of the determining objects are not fully existent as they are apprehended.
我在这么的帮你要我身体的情况，你把要不我们这个情况，他看到多了，是看到这个同理对于当地的国家的当地的企业或者企业吧，同把你的也都到完了年呢，也看到当地的多的也是当地的多的也是，这当地的老板呢是吧？当地给的老呢，电子企业了，明年都没多少说的，起码都是知名性当中。처음에 이제 진행도 그때 그때로 맞은 데자 공부라서 비서 또 처음에 진행도 그거
고나
데자 마당인데 야 또야 휴치 뭐야 지지야 자도 처음에 진행도 그거 나 처음에 진행도 거리 제우스나 당지 많이 버들래 처음에 진행도 그거
처음에 이제 남도 나디 말이 많이 나
처음에 진행도서 내가 너무 들어서 봐라 너다 파바치야 이동화 중중도 나빠 나자 이동화 뼈 다가 지시를 포함하지那弟弟有种摸就那在设计有种摸啊，他呢，他准备同样了店呢，那有种啊，差不多有种啊，多点了店呢，差不多机会了吧，差不多机会。那有种摸啊，被这个了被还加多当地，我就有种摸了，比较是不是通呢？比多单呢，点了店呢，那就这个机会，我是结果机会了。我在这里城里已经弄不少，这个茶汤里面我茶汤。
중이 이제 남도 양 말이 발라 자와 쟁유로
마리바티 로바이나 that's not the lesson 와 what me not competition 와
So once that ignorance has stopped, you stop discursive thought, which is the improper mental attention that superimposes quality such as attractiveness and repulsiveness. Repulsiveness, in other words, is ugliness, while observing the object of the apprehensions of true existence. So actually, Gisela also mentioned just now, this paragraph talks about the sequence of it, or sequence or the order. So then, you should properly understand the order or sequence of it. So once that ignorance has stopped, you stop recursive thought, which is the improper mental attention that superimposes qualities such as attractiveness and repulsiveness, right? So we need to realize the non-existence of the determining object apprehended by two self-graspings, which is the emptiness. So once that ignorance or self-graspings has stopped, then you stop discursive thoughts. So the discursive thoughts, which is the improper mental attentions. So these improper mental attentions is the one that superimposes qualities such as attractiveness and ugliness onto the objects. Even though the object is not that attractive, but due to improper mental attentions, then you superimpose or you exaggerate the attractiveness of it. Similarly, if the object is not very ugly, but because of these improper mental attentions, you superimposes or you exaggerate the ugliness of it. So, and because of these exaggerations or superimpositions by improper mental attentions, that creates a very strong attachment and anger. Because it's superimposed onto the objects already, then it creates a respective attachment and anger as well. So, and this improper mental attention is based on ignorance. So it says here, once that ignorance has stopped, then you stop discursive thought, which is the improper mental attention that superimposes qualities onto the object.
什么以难度对了，恰当接当的话，这三个方法呢，当别无需要的，对不对？哎，什么以难度之后的话，就看到，有动物啊，有动物啊了，把他把多少的给这里，看到，这个地方蛮有竞争力，这边的谁行不？这个谁行不呀？我只要把
是对明，是对明白。
这地方蛮有办法。
是好，
蛮法。这个我是谁行不？只要把这个话，上海今天这对谁行不？运动是。这里个哈家多的呢，到上海点了哈子的，看到早晚你要什么东西，你把那都是全部行不行？多到位呢？米让的先刚刚给把卡拉别了的，是不是是这恰把恰是去做的，恰是打到没有多，
卡拉
出来恰是没有多，什么意思？那个地区全部多到这恰是的，在这里打到这个，在这里是不是有？这卡拉不是现在是不是有的话？现在那个的。就是搞的叫的，难度得多大？上海你那哈子看了就没事，是吧？上海你那边看了那些看了早晚你们都看了修了一下，但是真难度的多大的？那下来咱这个修情况就看了，咱修起来的这差不多接不多，接不多。这个那些的，你都没都全部去马上去了的，他家这比较修的嘞，上次等于是多大位呢？这个空中修的没有了，他可能。这个事情不是常务多，这个常务多，我在等你，你切不行就在这个地方是两人呀，这什么方法做的话，那地方都到哪里去啊？都很不干，是吧
？So, how say we think in this way, then it's easier for us to understand what improper mental attentions is. So the discursive thought, which is the improper mental attentions. So this is something that we can relate through our experience. So something, a food, for example. So if many people talks about this food, how delicious it is, use a lot of adjective to describe how delicious this food is, then this discursive thought, which is an improper mental attention, it starts to superimposes or exaggerates qualities onto the object. So and due to these superimpositions or exaggerations, then it induces attachment. So the more you superimposes or exaggerate it, the delicious of it, the taste of it, then the more the stronger attachment will induce. So similarly, if a person or something is not that bad, but because of these improper mental attentions that keep superimposing bad qualities or the ugly aspects of the object, then it makes you think that oh, this person or this thing is very bad. Then it induces anger. So this is something that we can relate through our experience.
所以难度的老板那时候他听见了哇，当这个里边电脑呢，所以难度的多是吧？很多功能，所以就是难度的多吧？你多吧？反正你到底对他说你们，不晓得工作你多的，不是，是吧？他说你们多的也是，所以难度电网的，他说你，他让你就是去嘛，他就，是吧？难度电网的恰当的接触也是，那接触是吧？那难度电网多吧？这恰当的接触也是。
차당 소 녀몽 로 해라.
저 차당 녀몽 저 차당 녀몽 된다 무슨 거로 차당 된다.
So here it says that one ignorance has stopped. Once that ignorance has stopped, you stop discursive thought. Then once that has stopped, so that refers to improper mental attentions. The discursive thought, which is the improper mental attentions. So once that has stopped, the other mental afflictions that have the view of the transitory collections as their root, such as attachment, also stop. So just now we also mentioned that these improper mental attentions give rise to attachment and anger, right? Because it superimposes qualities, then it gives rise to attachment and anger. So once that improper mental attention has stopped, then the other mental afflictions such as attachment and anger also.
다 자손 녀몽 수가 너가 이나서 다르와. 자손 녀몽 도로다 지내게 도나 자손 녀몽 도로 뭐 자손 녀몽 어이나 에 뒤기는 한데 내도 도로 그래서 자손 녀몽 내게 싸라는 거 녀몽 꾸는 하고 와. 녀몽 꾸는 하는 말도 내 싸고를 말도 이 영어로 와. 아무도 영어 듣는 있어서 와. 오 대비기 아 녀몽이 봐. 로스나 때 녀몽이 끼는 한데 내도 도로 해서 이게 내 싸야라. 간다 녀몽이 끼는 한데 내 싸고를 와. 뭐 대선자 이게 가서 녀몽도 봐도나 이게 녀몽이 끼는 한데 내도 해서 와. 내도 간다 내 싸고만 내가 싸고만 와.
So once they have stopped, so they refers to afflictions such as attachment. So once they have stopped, karma motivated by them stops. So previously we also learned about 12 links of dependent arising, right? So we learned about the forwarding and also the process of entering a samsara and etc. So we learned that due to motivated by ignorance, we accumulated karma. We accumulate karma having motivated by afflictions. So once afflictions such as attachment have stopped, karma motivated by them stops.
레디 도바이나 가르고 벌쓰면 레디 도바이나 레디 도나 레디 파게 코아 라오메가 지와 기도를 해서 뭐 코아 라오메가 지와의 수속을 된 레디와 레디기 사사데 코아 라오메가 지라 레디 도타데 코아 라오메가 지와의 도는 해서 와 그때 준비 없으면 봐.
So once that has stopped, so that refers to a karma motivated by afflictions. So once that has stopped, rebirth in cyclic existence propelled by karma without control stops. So this you can see that the sequence of it, right? So once the something stopped, then the next one will be stopped as well. So here it talks about once that has stopped, rebirth in cyclic existence propelled by karma without control also stops. So because we are propelled, our birth is uncontrollable. Our birth in samsara is uncontrollable, and this is caused by the karma motivated by afflictions. So once that has stopped, then the rebirth in cyclic existence propelled by karma without control also stops.
오, 그런다. 그가 내일 도바이다 내디 원데 코알 마치와데 이와를 하면 버티 도도 예서와 다 코알 지와데 도도디 타바 토본은 예빠데 뭐 타바디 타바 토야지 타바 토야 테고레샤 타바 토야 예 타바 토바이나다 코알 때 지와 코알 제로 와 코알 제로 다 타바 토야지 뭐 오니 타바 와 타바 지요 하고 타바 테고 타바데 토바이나 오니 다에 코알 제로 무슨 이리 타바 토야지 자와데 또만게 따와데 해리 그때는 부탁치 빠지 제 모두 다 자와 와 예포난 따와데 부탁치 빠지 부탁치 봤으면 나도 제지 야보이 제공스 되라고 와 제지 야보이 제공 근데 예포난 따와서 다른 게 있는데 뭐에 다네 야보이 제공 나도 컴퓨터 나는데 근데 예서 오늘은 소속 모비에 나와이나 다른 뭐에 서로와 미션 많이 받아서 야가 다가다 내가 나시 세부에서 왔다 간다. 세부에서 상상 가서 예서 모비에 야노고 말하고 지구도 와. 아쉬운 수고를 내가 하는 거야. 기대는
Yes. and liberation is thereby achieved. So once rebirth in cycle existence propelled by karma without control stops, and then we achieve a liberation, the freedom from samsara. So yeah. So and then with this in mind, generate strong certainty and then decisively seek the view of suchness. So decisively seek. The meaning is properly seek, or yeah. So seek with proper analysis or examinations. So as if so we need to properly seek or decisively seek the view of suchness, as if we had lost our phone. Because sometimes we misplace our phone, right? So and then phone is very important. So and then we will search for it we'll search for it properly, examine everywhere, corners and everything, make sure we find the phone, make sure that until we find the phone, then we will continue searching. We will continue, look every corner and everything. So just like this. So generate a strong certainty and then decisively seek the view of suchness until you achieve it.
我的理解，当然我是肯定明白的，这点也不能说明白的我许多，他讲的啊，党部完之年下来可以早点，他结果的对面的是抓了是吧？这个地方是平当的看到的当时点，你是马里巴点也是可以早点，你可以早点，看的过完了，他搞的可能点的去新那个事情啊，新那个东咱们都是早点，哎，回来点，他可能当时点的不，那当时点的啊，过去不出来呢。我电话出面就是哪都得多的，
啲以前要咩話多呀？
前冇多多啊，
多。
我電話你當時電你幫到位啦，我電你幫到位啦，電話你去出面哪都得多的嘅，你哪都得多位啦，哪都電話你接你冇得，你冇在小老師話是多的東西，你冇在小老師話就要多位啦，得到個困難那邊，很快了連曬，我比連曬就連得多的，連得多位啦，過了東啊。然后那个结果啊，这些多的不都是结果，我们都是我这结果就是说，那等于说的他把出来的点点的些，他把出来，他把头发那干活的穿的不是，也点的活，他把头发了他做的，那房子点的工作给他推掉，他点的完了，这可能就到的不大这个这样子，我说这帮要不修的别人这样的，所以说哪里，所以说我当完一点，要不多，但是说哪里。这哪里真的我也面试的，那时候的话，全部的全部的话，那上了班的时候只是一个要的，要不学的话，我在这段写当他们的忙不离我的，但是这颠簸的话，颠簸是说我的讲呢，颠簸学的上了班了的，就我那个颠簸要不学，是吧
？So this is how the Lam Rim is really amazing, right? Because it condenses the meaning from those great texts, and then we can think of it makes it easier for us to think about it and then to keep in our mind. So here it shows the sequence of it. So we ascertain that ignorance, which is the self-graspings of person and self-graspings of phenomena, as the root that binds us to samsara. So and it can be stopped by gaining the view that realizes emptiness. So we need to realize the non-existence of the determining object, so which is the emptiness. So we need to realize emptiness. So the root of samsara is ignorance or through self-graspings. So it can be stopped by realizing emptiness, the realizations of emptiness. So realizing that the determining object of these two self-graspings as non-existence as they are apprehended. So if ignorance is stopped, then improper mental attention is stopped. If improper mental attention is stopped, then other ignorance such as attachment is stopped. If affliction is not, karma motivated by affliction is stopped. If karma is stopped, then uncontrollable rebirth in samsara is stopped. And once that is stopped, then one achieve liberation, one free from samsara. So with this in mind, so in brief is to generate strong certainty about this, and then decisively seek the view of suchness that eliminates the ignorance, which is the root of samsara.
내가 너도 이제는 혹시 간다 원 맞다 간다데 내가 나시 임바데 자와시를 군을 깨우고와 자와시를 군이 다가로래 내가 너무 세비가 내가 너무 만들어 내가 뚫을 때 공부는 가만 주세 내가 다시 본 내가 대가로 와 자와시를 말 이런 거 진짜 저기 자와시를 미스를 한번 소리하고 하세 당가서 와 간다 거기 자와시 더 봐라 근데 미시는 제고도 제고야 너무 리듬이 미시는 하세 다 소와 이런 것도 말아 공부하는 공부하는 거 진짜 공부하는 애들 시키는 시간 되는 시에 봐 공부하는 대공도 또 한다 언제 돈을 또 담아 보고 나도 이런 것도 맞습니다.
So then Rinpoche quoted the root text on wisdom. Root text on wisdom, in other words, is the fundamental treatise on wisdom called the fundamental treatise on the middle way called wisdom. So the root text on wisdom says, there is freedom when karma and afflictions are spent. Karma and afflictions arise from thoughts, and those arise from elaborations. Elaborations are stopped by emptiness. So Rinpoche says that, we need to practice. We need to practice in order to realize emptiness. In order to realize emptiness, that will stop ignorance or the two self-graspings. So we need to practice so, because Nagarjuna also said in the root text on wisdom that there is freedom from when karma and afflictions are spent or exhausted. Then karma and afflictions arise from thoughts, and those arise from elaborations, and elaborations are stopped by ignorance. So Rinpoche quoted Nagarjuna's root text on wisdom to support this point.
안에다 지는 거지 다 안에다 된다잖아. 뭐다 나죠. 근데 일단 코어지 그 림바디 치네. 그 고난지 하나. 또 봐라. 깨티쳐. 네. 리미 쳐봐 레바 마셔봐. 또 이거 뭐으나. 그거 간다래 봐. 코어지도 림바디 봐 상어야. 빠네. 간다. 예 고난이 그 공부하라. 코어래 도와라. 도와. 되게 제일 다 간다. 코어래 도와라. 신나지 체대 봐이나. 뭐지 다시 체대 봐이나. 또 말해. 또 말해. 이제 줘야 다시 되다. 줘야 많이 받는 거 제발 야 시고 그래서 와. 그 투자를 가리지. 다 가밀라 때 오늘 누구서 또 봐야 이상하다는 제발 그래서. 그래서 제발 마시 봐이는 딱 갈래. 또다 자타 뭐 갈래 기대 봐이나. 또래 도트야 기여 말했어. 아마 많이 와지 때문에 다 뭐잖아. 무슨 거나 때 도트야 말했어 뭐. 나도 랍자래 너.
So here is the Rinpoche's advice. So you must understand those stages of entering into and turning away from cycle existence, and greatly cherish the realizations of the meaning of suchness. However, it will not come through a vague involvement that fails to distinguish well the objects of observation. So, so one must understand well the process of entering into and turning away from samsara. So in order to be free from samsara, one needs to cultivate, one needs to meditate on emptiness. And by doing so, one will be free from samsara. So if you do not, so if you do not understand this well, and if you were to search for other methods, which you think can free you from samsara, so even if you spend 100 years practicing that, or 1,000 years practicing that, since you will not be free from samsara, since it's not the method that will free you from samsara. So therefore, you must search and proper understand the methods that will free you from samsara. So you must understand those stages of entering into and turning away from cyclic existence, right? So this paragraph already talked about the two stages, the stages of entering into and turning away from cyclic existence. So properly understand the meaning of this. how to generate the view that realizes selflessness. So this has 3 points: the stages of generating the 2 views of selflessness, the 2 progressive generations of the 2 views of selflessness, and presenting conventional and ultimate truths. The first outline is the stages of generating the 2 views of selflessness. Yes, can you this? 그래서 공부 진요 봤어야 돼. 근데 추기 당진 게 신유 때 손 맞춰 봐이나. 맞아. Yeah. So this verse, as long as one apprehends the aggregates, one apprehends an I in them. If one apprehends an I, there is karma, and from karma there is rebirth. So as long as one apprehends the aggregates, so this talks about the self-graspings of phenomena. One apprehends an I in them, this talks about self-graspings of person. So if one apprehends an I, there is karma, and from karma there is rebirth. So this verse already talks about the stages of the 2 self-graspings. So back to where we, yeah. So as for the stages in which the 2 apprehensions of a self arise, the apprehensions of a self of phenomena generates the apprehensions of a self of persons. Yeah. So as long as there is, as long as there is aggregates, apprehensions of aggregates. Oh yeah, as long as one apprehends the aggregates, so this is the self-graspings of phenomena. So and one apprehends an I, so this referred to self-graspings of person. So means that if one is unable to refute the determining object apprehended by the self-graspings of phenomena, then one will not be able to refute the determining object apprehended by self-graspings of person. If one cannot refute the determining object apprehended by self-graspings of person, and due to which one accumulates karma, and then due to karma, one circle in samsara, or there is rebirth in samsara. So this is the this is the meaning of here. So this is the general presentations of which self-grasping arise first.
공사 중에 송치 뭐 내가 공사 중에 마음부 쉬고 당데 네 제가 산이 주말 지기는 거 제가 산이 주말 내미는 나가 나게 뭐 텔레비전 제가 그 제가 감도 지듯이 양다 많이 제가 지금 오늘에요 이지 양다 이거 있어도 어때 지금 빼게 좀 쉬러 가지 뭐 어디들 맞지 주게 이거
담이기를 많이 나기 싫라 수인배.
아
담이기를 봐.
뭐 나도
자려라. 맞아. So precious. 그래. 일단 나 멜로가. 맞아.
남의 공부를 가다가 남의 따와지 배워 남의 따와지 그렇게 넣었어요.
맞아. 네,懂的. Yeah. Still, when you engage in the suchness of selflessness, you must first generate the view of the selflessness of persons, and then after that, generate the view that realizes the selflessness of phenomena, as Precious Garland says. So these two verses in from Precious Garland is very important, and His Holiness Lama always quote these two verses as well. So the Precious Garland says, if persons are not earth, not water, not fire, not wind, not space, not consciousness, and not all of them together, then what else could persons be? Since persons are composite of the six elements, they are not real. And in that same way, each element is also a composite, then and therefore is not real either. 강사기 강사
어디 다 간다 디시거든 지금 산이 추마이 다 간다 디가서 딜 수거래 다 간다 지금 산이 추마이 메미누메 나카베 나시 마이세 대바도와 나시 마이세 대바 대바도 다가 카도고래 다 간다 지금 가서 마이세로 카도고래 나시 마이세 바데 대바도와 사 카도고래 다 간다 지금 가서 마이세 뭐가 더 치료 못 하는 단도와 나시 마이세 대바
Yeah. So here is identified person. So if we identify person well, then it's easier for us to identify selflessness. So if persons are not earth, not water, not fire, not wind, not space, not consciousness. So here talks about 16, right? The six elements. So if persons are not earth, not water, not fire, not wind, not space, not consciousness. So here it says that each each element is not the person. So each element this earth is one element, water, fire, wind, space, and consciousness. These are six elements. So each of them is not person. So here there are three important points that we need to understand. Very important that we need to understand. So here, if persons are not earth, not water, not fire, not wind, not space, not consciousness. So up to this point, here it talks about each element is not a person. And not all of them together. So not all of them together means that not a composite of these six elements is element. So each element is not person. Sorry, each person is not person, and a composite of elements is not a person as well. And not all of them together shows that how the composite of these elements is not the person as well.
kada jebo kada kanto rene jebo mais kanto ndiba de jebo mais wa tele chena jebo kan si wa that did tell us so much. That delegation a Jebo Kansa, that can't do it in a Jebo Mare, can't do it. Giba de Jebo Maris, Kim Kansa Maris, Maris. Ah, delegation a Jebo Kansa, that can't do what. Gerale Shimbi, Gerale water division, Jebo Carmures a day. Yes,
more
can't do what, or can't do what Gerale Shimbi, water division, water division, Yoris in the day. Yes, can't do Gerale. Can't do Gerale, and I'm water division, which you are. Well, water division, Kansa was here. Yes, but then the Dodo disown that. Didn't know that the share. What? The Dodo soon. The Dodo soon. And that Kansa can't go any Jebo. Can't go in Diva Jebo. Can't go Gerale. Water TV, water TV, Kansa, yours in a what the delegation Jebo Khan, the detail that they do. Delegation Jebo Kansa, that kind of really Jebo Mai, how to Diva Jebo Mai, not to Gerale, water TV, yes. That is the
Tibuti, a Kansa de Yamaris.
Maris, water TV Kansa, your Maris, your Maris. That James was James was comfortable, water TV, Shayo Maris.
So there are three important points. The first important point is each element is not the person, and not all of them together is the person. So the composite of elements is not the person as well. Then what else could person be? So what else could persons be? If we, in other words, then it can be translated as what else could the person be other than those? What else could the person be other than those? So there is the word other than those or other than that. So what it means is a person or being cannot be posited. A person or a being which is of different entity from those elements cannot be posited as well. I repeat. Then what else could persons be other than those or other than that? Also means it shows the third important point, which is the person or being who is a different entity from those 6 elements also cannot be posited. So this is the third point. The can't really Kangsa Mari, Gun in the Kangsa Mari, anything Tili Shemba, anything come to put it ale, what had they be Kangsa, Yang Shai Yomaris.
The song Hakoba Shigua, the Soyore, accountable really Jebo Maris, count to go the Nibadi Jebo Maris, count to go Derale, more Tati Jevici Yomaris, more Tati Jevici Yomaris, Election Jebo Concept. But the Dodo Soyo that Hakoba.
So this verse itself, the first verse, talks about 3 points, which is very important to understand. So the first important point is each element is not the person, or is not the person, is not the being. And then not all of them together. So it shows the second important point. The composite of these elements is not the person either. Then what else could person be other than those? Then this shows the third point, which is a person who is of different entity from those 6 elements also cannot be posited. So these are the 3 important points that we need to understand in relation to the first verse.
Oh, I'm not the chief with the Tomo Maria said, Lovely, I can't do this. You wanna candidate, this summer, contributed. Mari, contributed a relation what activity your Maris. Never in much which can't job is it. Who knows how to who is not it? You will come to Division Yanda Mines in what? That is not the show that you will come to Division Yanda Mines. Let's see. Anybody and the mines in what? Dig to the issue. I think to the Karsana, how the Chibu Kanta, Yang Tava to Mare, yes, Yang Tava to Mare, Chibu Kanta, Yang Tava to Mare, Mine to Karsana. People can't do deeper than Tava, yes, can't do deeper than Tava, people can't do it to Jose. What did you say? That is, the long of some talking about the picture that in a tapu, she cleaned out, 大师给送给我，这个说还是呢，养到满意说的，我说让他留下成我的，反正接不得，我去年说，那去年说，啊接不得啊，养到我多吧嘛，yes，养到我多，就是搞的是呢，抗中离把了对点大把的，yes，是吧？抗中离把点大把，yes，那就是对不对？结果抗中离不些是呢，我接不得养到吧，马的养到吧多，yes，养到吧多嘛，yes。养大把多满意的，哦，看中你把那店里大把的是，看中你把那大把的，他们你不是，那得就是，那得做到，那得结婚是很吧，那做到。
Yeah. So here you say the first verse talks about the person is each element is not a person, composite is not a person, and then how say person there is a different entity from those six elements is also not the person, or it cannot be seated as well. Then how the person exists? Then the second one is to identify the person, identify how the person exists. So it says, since beings are composites of the six elements, they are not real. So this sentence says that if you know how to debate, then you know that there are three parts. So the first one is the subject, and then the second one is the predicate, and then followed by reason. So the subject here is the person, and then predicate here is person is not real. So they are not real. So not real as in they do not they do not establish in its
那接不得，
the kasa yang da ma yi ba
养大把我말해, 진짜 가르쳐 다 부자라, 저게, 나 다바 두바, 우리 바 부자라, 그 제부도 양 다바 말해, 진짜 가르나, 한국 리빠라 때문에 따봐, 한국 리빠라 때문에 따봐, 그러니까 한국 리빠라 때문에 따봐, 양 다바, 가나 맞대고 양 다바 죽으러와, 와, 가나 맞대고 양 다바 죽으러와, 이 말해서 그러와, 나도 대단하다 가서, 제 다음에 따다 때문에 하고,
So they are not real. So they are not real, or they are not established in its own reality. So there's another translation for this. So they are not really established. So they are not really established. So why they are not really established? Because then the third part, which is the reason. So because they are imputed, person is imputed upon the composites of the six elements. So here, yeah, so this is how they debate. First, they talk about the subject and the predicate and the reason, right? Or the sign. So person is the subject. Predicate is they are not real, or they are not really established, or not established in its own reality. Then why? Then the third part is sign or reason, because they are imputed, because a person is imputed on the composites of the six elements. So this is how they form the three parts as these are the three parts in a debate manner. So a person is not real, or not established in its really established. Sorry, the person is not real or really established, or do not establish in its own reality, because a person is imputed on the composites of the six elements. So this is how the person exists. So if a person were real, real in what it means is they are established without depending on anything, without depending on something else. So this is real establishment means, or real establishment means. So they are not real establishment because a person is imputed on the composites of the six elements.
됐다. 나 지금 칸돈 디비시 한다 많이 이제 나 되게 지금 되게 또 대소아. 이거 칸돈 디비시 한다 많이. 그래서 내가 봐. 그게 들어야 돼. 집에서 나도 막 된다. 건 봤어. 자세히. 당모디 막 그래. 지금 산 춤에서 집에서 그리만 거 당모니 소장도 지진 또야 와. 그리고 나 되면 막 지금 칸돈 디비시 한다 많이 있으면 나 집에 야 다바 두고 말했어. 예? 야 다바 두고 많이 비슷해. 한국 디발에 따바리 그래서 그 디발에 따바 소자 그냥 따바 두고 무슨 따바 도스나 제부터 주다 제 거마 때바라 어 지들이 두는 거래 근데 여름에서 여말 다시 부부가 다 페라 먹고 지금 중국에 이 여름에서 여말와 또 어떤 회사에 야고 싶었다 나중에 가서 된다 해야 말다 당시 이 그때 그 전부 시고
So here, these two verses has really give us a lot of informations and talks about many different informations that we need to know. So first verse talks about how it refutes the person being each element, how it refutes each element being the person, the composite being the person, and then a person other than those six elements is that is of different entity from those six elements is also not the person either. Then how the person exists. Person, since beings are composite of the six elements, they are not real. So a person is not real. A person is not real means that they are not independently existent. Person, they are not real means that they are not independently existent, that do not depend on cause and conditions. So if a person were real or real established, then the person would exist without depending on anything else. The person would be independently existent. So, however, there is no such independent existent person. So, therefore, they are not real. So, they are not real. Why they are not real or real established? Because a person is imputed on the composites of the six elements.
어디 제부 칸도 비비시 한다 많이 있어 비간 어디 제부 예순자와 제부 예순자래 한다 한다 제부데 यहाँ ताबा टुबा माई बखंडा कंडा देंबा में बशे निमे शे होरे देंबा में चिब आजा दादा में बशे होरी दादा आदु बशे होरी ए काजा दामे देना हो वा दामे देना हो होरे केबे नेस जेबे से वाला kan जुरे ने इंगे सो होरे दादी दादी वर मा दिजे दा जेबो खम यांदा माई से 지다와 아자들이 마서 봐 지다와서 지다와 예시 칸레레야 이시 양다 너도 됐어 네 도와 아데 다 제부 나시 지다와 대신서데 제부 가사 대나시로 제부 가사 대나시 제가 가사데 양다가 두고 봐야 돼 한번 죽었네 따바레세 대나시로 대나시 예 제부 가사 따와 대나시로 알아와 또 대나시 대신서 대바 대신 예 칸레레야 다도 주지 칸레레야 칸레레야 네 니시 안다 니도 미세 칸레레와 양다바 두바 니도 미데로 다도 심심하게 무자리 양다바 두바 니도 양다바 두바 마인데
니도 민사대 right?
오 양다 니도 미세로 근데 칸레레와 데 칸레레와 주지 칸레레와 데 양다바 두바 마데스 많이 비틀지 가르스나 니비시스도와 타트만 니발라 된다 man dibala tenta chat man dibala tenta ba es
chat mala tuba
chat man dibala
chat ma tuba
o chat man dibala tenta ba es orwa o da de gare khan re wa ya da ba tuba ko chi da mi chi wo ai ji bu do kan da da mi chi wo wa 근데 khan re wa so da ma do chi da mi chi wo da da do khan re wa anda ya da ba tuba ma ni de chat man dibala tenta ba es 위시도 놓아야 지타마 오 나티 아 간사게 담에 취 담에니까 됐대나 못 잡다 못 잡다 어디 그 지기 하고더라 해와 그따와 대신이 있어야 돼 아까 가서 찌부들라 샤바 대나시 됐다와 대나시 오와 됐다와
주진데
칸을 해와 지도 해와 돼 따바두가 말이 이 많이 비슷한 타트만 디발하게 따바리네 이시사
So since beings are composites of the six elements, they are not real. So this shows the selflessness of a person. A person is not real established because it is imputed independence on the composites of the six elements, or is imputed upon the composites of the six elements. And in that same way, so this shows the selflessness of person, right? And in that same way, so similarly, each element is not real either. So if you were to follow the Tibetan version of this, yeah, so to explain this, then it will be each element is not real either. Why? Because it is also a composite. So meaning each element is the subject. The predicate is not real either. Why? Because it is also a composite. So again, this how's it can be put into the manner of in the debating manner. So it shows the subject, predicate, and sign. So each element is not real either because it is also a composite. Meaning, just like the substances of person, each element is not real established because it is because an imputation because it is imputed independent on the composites of various parts. So each element is not real either because it is imputed independence on the composite of various parts or numerous parts. So in the same way, so just like the selflessness of person, then each element is also a composite, and each element is not real either because it is also a composite. So this shows the selflessness of person. So this verse itself already identified two selflessness: the selflessness of person and selflessness of phenomena. So the first part of it talks about the selflessness of person, and in the same way, so that followed by it, then shows the selflessness of phenomenon.
that's the chief damage the concept damage damage shares one. The chief damage the corner, they were the chief damage shares one. Damage, Tawa, remember the chief remember the Takanda damage Tawa, go to the remember the Taka, didn't share on the remember the Takanda, remember the Abo, concept damage shares one. He is a chief damage the Haro is what's in. I didn't change to see the ones I get the one, that shows it.
이 당보는 이 강사기 당신 양식 받대 땡기요.
제가 설치 그러면 와. 뭔데 담에 있다고 지금 봐서 우도와 담에 있다고 지금 봐도 담보만 이렇게 저는 쉬어져. 강사를 담에 쉬어서 와. 이게 간다. 주지 담에. 아다 누구도와. 한번도 지나고 정말 담보 담에 이제 엄마 강사를 담에 따와 또 봐. 이제 이제 주지 담에 또 그게 담에 담보 주지 담에 이제 이제 강사를 담에 지금 이제 이 주시다고 와. 다들 시발 나지 손바 나시 다른 길로 치지 마. 우리 대가 올려서 와. 다들 배 좀 좋아.
이게 가서 수기 당신 디 당보기 애니 디텔라 디 강사기 당보 디 지지 당보 디 땡기요.
예, 당가들이 엔더테 당보 치고.
맞아. 디 당보 디 담에 디 짜인 봐. 맞아. So since beings are composites of the six elements, they are not real. So this, as I mentioned, this shows the selflessness of person. And then each element is also a composite and therefore is not real either. Then this shows the selflessness of phenomena. And this verse talks about two selflessnesses, right? So two selflessnesses. And this also shows the sequence of realizing the two selflessnesses. So one must first realize the selflessness of a person, and followed by the selflessness of a phenomena. As it says here, still, when you engage in the suchness of selflessness, you must first generate the view of the selflessness of person, and then after that, generate the view that realizes the selflessness of phenomena. Yeah, so just to make sure that you understand the selflessness of phenomena, so each, as is shown in these two lines, so each element is not real or not real established because it is also a composite. So meaning of this is each element is not real or not real established because it is a composite. So composite also means that it is imputed independent on the composite of composite of numerous parts. Yeah. So because it is imputed independent on the composite of various parts.
因为的康萨的，而且的动作啊，那么这个呢，为的康萨的点点大的去杀了什么汤呢？让今天的什么大的，我是这个其他的时候吧，我看到咱们心里说，第一就是看到平常的接触啊，看那个多啊，接触啊，我到底就是没去电话的送的多啊，到底就是没去电话送，这电话那是就是没去打的呀，就是呢，那其实我的打的多，那没得把这上的多是吧？没得把这的，没得电话送的。아까도 대표는 지금 도마 간다 담는 좀 쉬어 예스 좀 쉬어야 돼 내가 알아서 예스 이 제르미다 그만 아주 자세히 막 하는 거야.
So Rinpoche explains by saying that lack of inherent resistance first in terms of the person and then in terms of the basis is imputed on the elements such as earth. So he explains lack of inherent resistance first in terms of the person. So here it talks about the selflessness of the person, and then in terms of the basis. So this shows the selflessness of phenomena. And then Rinpoche quoted Chandrakirti, Buddhapalika, and Shantideva, saying that they also explain in the same way. So he says, explain that when entering into suchness, one first enters by way of the selflessness of persons.
我这我的人家就其实知道嘛，我这在他都第是上午班啊，当天我晓得是吧？当天我在上班就是早上这个是吧？人家就其实在忙的工作就是忙不休，忙的在这，我也常的。
我其實啦啲當啲呢嘅選拔點自己談不得聽呢個聽呢樣啦，啲聲音啦，啲波馬咯，來說來說，
你等下當面那麼修的，他當的那個的修了修的，當的，那修的，那說。
Yeah, so regarding the words from Precious Garlands, so if you think about it, then is how say then how say it's easy if you understand them. How say yeah, how say there are meanings that you can comprehend out of these verses.
我就是说，那你可能主要你讲，主要因为就是说。
Yeah, so if you have any question, then you can ask now.
And Caroline here. Lama, I let Kwa say first. Okay.
Okay, so the observed object, the I and the phenomena, the observer is the mind. So is the mind inclusive in the phenomena, or do we have to pay special attention to observe the mind itself, the emptiness of the mind itself? In other words, the object of observation has been ascertained as inherently non-existent. Don't we have to ascertain the observer, which is the mind, or being inherently also non-existent? Do we have to do that, or is it inclusive already?
Thank you. So, miba dan miba chingen yora miba sa de yana miyu sa de anything 당신 이 그다 당신 담이 니 또알아 담이 니 또알아 이제 미유의 니요레스 이제 나사 데 강사로 이게 신나 지니 데 추레스 니디 미유의 니요레스 이제 미게자 되어로 미바보 미바 체바보 이제 세미로 심기 이제 미바 체기요레사 미바 디 송기요레스 이제 아주 추기 담이 디 디 성로 땅와이나 범와이나 디 지톤 가이스나 단단히 지와 담보디 심세데 추낭로라 두기요나 네 지와 담보디 디 심세데 추낭로라 두기요나 아니 디 두기요나 아니 아주 디 추기 담에 이보데 공나 두기요나 양나 양 하바도 심기 동바 심기 라시 두게 동바然后以前伊对东巴的样密切一样广播员啊，连样都对个那你讲这样的哈巴都样新嘅然后以前伊嘛对个东巴的样对的对个东巴的样密切嘅样广播员啊，专业的不只有专业的不有新的却能够对个那那啲对个那咩那你讲 미세기 양 생기 랑이 생이 맞죠? 랑이 생이 주베 동바데 공부였어.
그 생각을 하고 생각을 지금 먼저 치기 때문에 와
음.
지금 인생 생각을 지금 먼저 와 가자라는 지금 먼저 가자기 때문에 와 가자 지금 먼저 이동하는 가자기 때문에 와 간다 취지 때도 생기 때도 랑 지금 그 동안 동안에 때 취지가 강가 때도 랑 지금 그 동안에 나가 또 두고 있다 인생 한번 담보 also que 생기 때도 이나한다 가사기 때도 이나한다 아니 내 통화 밤에 또 발라 피스칼에 하고 있어요. 나 되게 제에서 실직이 때도 가서 또 차리 내가 신다게 때도 간다 다음에 또 와서 일 하고 참 예스 일하고 되게 봐요. 예스 좋아 일하고 차고 예스 어디 좋습니다. 나 간다 나서 호화 지기 좋아해 당제 그거 당제 니수가 나 취지 담에다 간다 그 다음에 내가 또 아니, 뭐 또 그러더니나, 가사라고 이나리 마음을 잡쳐버려. 이라니나리 마음을 열어. 가사이나 그냥 해진다고 가사 해지 가사 해 하지 마도 또 이제 현대 최신다. 현대가 가사 못 열어. 누다마 그렇게 뭐 또 와야 하. 뭐 찍게 또. 아마서 취지 다음에 또 이제 부모라고 찍게 돼서 나게 부모라고 찍게 수치 부모 때도 취지 다음에 또 이제 현대나 나서 주로去那个比那老师嘛，这里忙不有了，这个的当然多了，那来他，我给你讲的是，这当考虑是通报一下看看，当然多呢，去考虑多哪一呢？连不这个这些临时搞出来说过吧？
其他那种就的去打没的碰不说去也一定碰不一定多你的打没的多完呢，你的节啦就的团队心理定度没的多了。你多完呢的可能的心理定度的东南的多一点也吧有嘛的话，几多完呢？的多，反正团队的心理定度的多的话。
这个多在里。
방법에 수보에 내 뒤쳐로 예 가자야 내 조제리 된도 내 동의 이 도제 내 뒤에 제라 내 와서 뒤 근데 가자 대 생리 된도 동의 이 도바 이 예바 요 말이스 아주 이 뒤에 또야 라데 내라 와 말이스 그래서 uh, yeah so the first question is 가자 seminar de chula preview ro that's all yeah so the first question is mind is included in phenomena so mind is included in the category of phenomena so one first realize how say for example if one meditate on emptiness in relation to phenomena such as a table so when if one realize emptiness in relation to the table then it doesn't mean that you have realized emptiness in relation to the mind, even though mind is included in the category of phenomena. But realizing one instant of phenomena that does not necessarily mean that you also realize the emptiness in relation to other instances in the same category. So, however, if you realize emptiness in relation to phenomenon such as a table, then it makes you easier to understand or realize emptiness in relation to another other instances, for example, mind. Thank you.
Because the enlightenment is related to the mind. The mind must realize as of itself empty of an inherent existence. And my question again is that if you realize that if you meditate on the mind meditating on the mind, and realizing that it is empty of an inherent nature, then by argument, what it observes, what appears to the mind, like the eye or the phenomena or the elements, necessarily must be empty, isn't it? So the follow-up is, so what I'm trying to say is that can we just concentrate on meditating on mind, meditating on mind? And once you establish that, we establish the rest of the equation.
Establish less.
we establish all the other relationships. That all phenomena are therefore observed by the mind. Only the mind can observe, nobody else can observe. And what if the mind is empty, what is observed must therefore be empty. That's what I'm trying to say. And therefore you have realized both phenomena and I are empty of an inherent nature, or of an autonomous nature.
你上家啦，上家啦，你我做啲研究，我做啲心嘢呢啲，其實啲心嘢呢啲怕到咗咯，其實上家啦呢啲心嘢，其實人性嘅就係動物啲，野把啲多咯，野把啲多嘅，你我做心嘢顛倒，其實動物呢啲多嘅樣啦，其實啲，咁樣呢啲多突樣嚟嘅啦。心機，我說心機呢啲動物呢啲都有咯。我出嘅心機動物呢啲都有咯。你講心機顛倒動物呢啲都有啦，同我哋嘅講嘅就話點心機咧？心機，所以看晒自己心，動物呢都嘅那啲心咯。你啲我說啲心機顛倒動物呢樣多咯。啲馬多那啲生機都嘅嘛咧，其實呢啲心機。其他啲心機顛倒動物呢啲都有啦，啲多那麼多呢啲生機都嘛咧，這樣啲人那啲條啲大面啦，啲人嘅幾隻啲噶。
心機動物，上邊嘅心機動物多嘅係。
呢啲心機啦，心人嘅動物呢啲多咯，咪把前眼堂。mi pa po thang mi yu de chi chai ro sim gi dong ban ni to res chi san ni de mi pa po thang mi yu ji de cha wa res ni de i to wai na ni nga zo de ka sa de kang sa chue gi dang me de yang to gi ro ni yang sim gi den du dong ban ni yang to gi ro
ni de ke ma se pora ra de chi ma de ba to ro ko se pora ni ni se ra de chi ji de to to no res
其實咪把波 same 啫，咪咪樣 same 啫。
你話個語言嗰個 same 咯，語言 same 啫，
咪語那樣 same 咯。
same 啦，邊個話啲波？呢啲叫
你幾多那話多你啲生嘅對嘛咯？
生嘅對嘛嘛，生嘅。
啊，你言之面之啲 same 嘅 same
嘅。嗱，冇多嘅喎，生嘅啦。多。是幾個萬先嘛啦，是最常見的幾個這個動物。
其實呢啲嗰個心機顛倒動物呢，啲多呢生機有咯，啲多那麼多呢啲生機都嘛咧，呢啲心機動物呢啲多呀啲叫有嘛咯，咪把波堂咪有啲自然吧，自然嚟樣呢啲叫有嘛咯。Yeah. So, yeah. The observer mind observe the object, which is also a mind, as non-inherent existence. Then one realizes emptiness. So one achieve enlightenment. So without realizing this, one cannot achieve the state of enlightenment. So if you realize emptiness on the basis of mind itself, then one realizes emptiness of phenomena.
Thank you very much.
Simgi. Tanay din mi pa po di share up da po chai. Share sim. Chizani di share up ki sim ranging ma jwa te to yo res. Chizani di mi pa po na di sim se a de ya. So sim de nge ba cha. Sim nge ba. Sim ma tu be. Kira ina chosin ma ro. That's right. Chedan di mi ba po na di sim ma re se ya na di nge ba sim ko ya ma. Sim na di re sim ma ina di re. Bebe. mi babo said.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so however, when we say observer is the mind and then they observe the object, which is the mind as non-inherent existence, then one realizes emptiness of phenomena or substances of phenomena. So however, the observer must not be the mind. So it's not necessarily a mind. So it can be wisdom. So when we say mind, then when we say mind in general, it refers to the main mind, right? So however, is the observer is not necessarily a main mind because it can be a wisdom, realizing mind as non-inherent existence.
Okay, I want to ask a question. I've waited for 3 weeks already. Yeah, Gisela, I did ask Sally on this, and Sally says she also don't know. Established by way of its own character. Can I say when I look at a flower, I can identify it by the texture, by the shape, by the color, and I say this is a composite phenomena, therefore it is impermanent. Can I use this to say it's established by way of its own character? Or perhaps Gisela can give us the definition. Question number 2.
Sorry, you look at a flower and then the shape, the color, and etc. as the composite
texture
of phenomena.
And then I know the nature is a composite phenomena, therefore it is impermanent, right? So can I use this statement like established by way of its own character? So I look at the flower, the shape is like that, the color is like that, the texture is like that, and it's a composite phenomena, therefore it is impermanent. Does it qualify established by way of its own character, or it's better Gisela give us the definition, what it means by established by way of its own character? That is the first question. The second is also very easy. The view of transitory collection. The definition is self-grasping of person. Is that right?
Sorry, the view of transitory collection?
The definition is self-grasping of person. Is it right?
Oh, you mean the definitions of view of the transitory collections is self-grasping of person?
Yeah, is it correct? Best is Gisela give us the definition because we are doing the course. Yeah?
Yeah, that's all.
Thank you very much. Thank you in advance, Gisela.
Ngi kowa di tende ris di tat ngi kowa di tata yunas pina che sana ngi medo ji tongje ne di medo gi so ka so ta da gip dang any di chun do dang any di yang ka sa je ja da bo yora medo ina zu bo ina da any jang bo ina da any di tongje any di du ji res medo di du ji res du ji in be mi da ba res any di rang i gi do with di reverse di chwa tambo di
mare de chono ge 생기 두스나 거 가자래 그래 근데 그래도 돼 다 디시전 원에서 와대 이 가자 로용
근데 게 기실라 예랑이 생기 두게 생이디 송로 나사
네 된다도 마시죠 들어와 그처럼 메도디 펜디시 미가 봐서 와대 원에서 차대고 원에서 하라 디시를 미가 봐 랑게 진짜 두고서나 다 탄주가 가자래 가자 가자래
디 가자 디 미타바레니 디 가자 디 땡기요
가자 말이 단다도 랑게 메도는 디시를 베레시디 원에서
미타바레
잡아라
니 디 가자 지지나 디 따바디 가기
왜 말했어 진짜 두고서나 가자래 해서 나 메도데 랑게 진짜 두고서 가자래 메도데 랑게 진짜 두고 가르치는 메도데 요다 이 다시 걔가 맞대 봤더니 메도지 누나 어다 메도랑 같이 생겨 봐.
라와마 누가
라와 요다 지 차시 가야 맞대 봐. 근데 라와 중에 메도지 누가 이나 얘들이 메도데 땅에 진짜 봐 차. 같은 비지 요 말해서 보다. 나 메도데 네가 가 맞대 봐. 라와 근데 두가지 요래 되게 요 말해. 얘 요스나 때 메도데랑 같이 진짜 봐. 어디래? 뭐 제가 매로 그런 대시에 미다 말에 원에서를 거. 가는. 이 가자 누구 말에 예? 야로 사들어.
Đi chùa Bảo Bồ Đề, đi ở ngay
아무 좋아
chợ
방금
là số, là số. Đi đi sinh đi sao vậy này?
진짜
Đi đi chuyển đó đi đó rồi.
다
Yeah, as you mentioned in your first questions that also you see the shape, color, texture of flowers, and then you see these flowers compounded is a compounded phenomena or a composite of phenomena, and then thus is impermanent. Then this doesn't shows object of negations. So this flower is a compounded phenomena or is a composite of phenomena, thus is impermanent. This doesn't shows object of negations. So it is it is true that a flower is a compounded phenomena that's impermanent. So is as it merely saying this, then this doesn't show object of negations. However, when we say establishment by way of its own character itself is the object of negations. So to give you an example, to explain the meaning, what does it mean by established by way of its own character is if something can exist independently without depending on cause, conditions, parts, and etc., then this is established. Then that thing is established by way of its own character. For example, if there was a flower that could establish independently without depending on cause and conditions or parts, then this flower would exist independently or would establish by way of its own character. However, there is no such flower could exist or establish by way of its own character. So established by way of its own character, the meaning of it is independently exist or establish independently without depending on cause, condition, parts. So this is the meaning of established by way of its own character. So we need to identify it as object of negations. It is to be refuted or negated.
매도는 두고다 뛰어와서 양화서 다르게 시고도 근데 매도는 들시는 거 매도 두고다 예 레저 두고다 저와서 그다 제가 마대바 가라 마대바 매도는 두고다 양화 들리는 시바이나 그거 지금 시반데
가라 마대마
네 매도데 네 이게 가라 마대바 두고다 양화 들리 두고다 저와 리 니제고 라라 그래 들리는 시바이나 그런 거 생기도 많지.
So when we apprehend something as established by way of its own character, then it will be like this. When you talk about the texture of the flowers, right, it can be rough or it can be smooth, for example. So if you apprehend that roughness of the flowers as independently exists without depending on cause and conditions or parts, then that is the apprehensions of established. That would be the apprehension. Sorry, that would be the apprehensions of flower as established by way of its own character. Yeah. Di tuan iba di jita sete. Jita gi tsenyi kangsa gi tangzi inas. Jita gi tsenyi kangsa gi tangzi inas. Di mina gi shala gi tsenyi shago nas.
jita서 나도 나요 그러면 나라 나랑 지금 나랑 지금 누가 같이 해서 이거
나도 나이와
나도 나요 그러면 나랑
강동라
지금
미네. 나도 나이와 강동라 미네.
나랑 같이
나랑
나랑 지금 누가 되는데 나도 나요 그러면 미네 나랑 지금
랑기 센이기 로바 짐바 짐베 로사데 짐바야나 짐벨로 짐벨로 nga thằng ngay wa khang rong la mi ne gang yi chen yi gi tu ba ji me lo di khang sa gi dang jin chen yi ma wa so definitions of view of the transitory collection is not self-grasping of a person. So the definitions of view of the transitory collection can be proceeded like this. The awareness that apprehends as established by way of its own character upon observing either I or mine. I repeat, An awareness that apprehends as established by way of its own character, that apprehends I or mine as established by way of its own character. I repeat, an awareness that apprehends either I or mine as established by way of its own character. So this can be considered as the definitions of view of the transitory collection. Yeah, thank you very much. We stop here. If you have any question, you can ask in coming class.
Thank you very much, Sheila and Ken. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we conclude these sessions with these Dhamma lessons with dedications. We dedicate the roots of virtue accumulated, especially through these Dhamma lessons. May it be the complete cause for Buddha Dhamma to flourish in all 10 directions and for all sentient beings to experience excellent happiness. We also dedicate these roots of virtue to all upholders of Buddha's teaching, mainly His Holiness the Dalai Lama, to live long and have excellent health, and may all their holy wishes and enlightened activities be accomplished instantaneously and be spread in all 10 directions. We also dedicate these roots of virtue, especially to our teacher, beloved teacher, Kyabje Lama Rinpoche, endowed with great kindnesses. So may Rinpoche holy wishes be accomplished instantaneously, and may the unmistaken reincarnations of Rinpoche be swiftly returned and continue the tender way of Dharma for the sake of teachings and sentient being, so that we will have the opportunity to receive the precious teachings from you again, Rinpoche. We also dedicate these roots of virtue to the world peace, and may excellent happiness prevail in the world. May wars, conflict, disaster, natural disaster, diseases, etc. be pacified immediately.
And you